Humans shouldn't even own pencils, yet she just humiliated a thousand-year hive. The Alien Academy's examination hall glowed with translucent walls that pulsed faintly as if alive, while rows of desk-like pods stretched in perfect symmetry. Each pod housed a student from a different world, their antennae, tendrils, or crystalline appendages clutching quills that linked directly into the Academy's vast central consciousness. At the very center, surrounded by a halo of humming energy, sat Mira Thompson, the only human student admitted in over 5 centuries. She looked almost absurdly ordinary compared to her peers, her messy brown hair tied into a knot that threatened to fall apart, her cheap Earth brand pencil balanced between her fingers. The exam was infamous, the Hive-Mind integration test. Every species that wanted to prove intellectual worth to the galaxy had to synchronize with the shared hive intellect, process incomprehensible data streams, and weave a solution to problems so complex that entire planetary think tanks often failed them. The Zyrat scholars clicked their mandibles nervously, the Voru draped their shimmering sensory wings over their pods, and the crystalline Zek restructured their facets to maximize reflection efficiency. Mira just tapped her pencil on the desk, humming. When the pulse struck, the walls radiated waves of thought, binding every alien's consciousness together in a mesh of buzzing patterns. Minds twisted, equations unfolded like galaxies splitting apart, languages folded in on themselves in kaleidoscopic spirals. Students groaned, some shuddered, others dripped bioluminescent sweat as they fought to keep pace. Pens scratched furiously, claws etched marks into data slates, crystalline appendages carved symbols in radiant dust. Mira yawned and began to write as if she were answering a middle school algebra quiz. What stunned the room wasn't that she was calm, it was that she was faster than the hive. The alien network surged with trillions of probabilities. Yet Mira's pencil scribbled lines and circles that resolved into neat, elegant solutions. She didn't pause to decode the streaming alien dialects. She simply sketched charts, drew arrows, and muttered, "This is just pattern recognition with extra glitter." Across the hall, a Zyrat scholar dropped his quill with a horrified clack. His thorax trembled as he realized his calculations had looped back on themselves. Avoru's wings went rigid, her compound eyes dilating as she saw Mira's scribbles match the answers forming in the hive's deepest core. One by one, pens and quills clattered against pods as aliens abandoned their hopeless efforts, staring at the human who seemed to dance across the page. By the time the exam pulse faded, Mira was stretching, her paper filled with answers that looked like doodles of spirals and arrows. But when fed into the evaluation matrix, the Academy's entire structure shuddered with green light, the universal sign of perfection. "Impossible," hissed a crystalline Zek, its facets flickering dimly. "No isolated mind can outperform the hive." Mira shrugged. "Maybe don't overcomplicate things. Sometimes the trick is just noticing the pattern everyone else ignores." The dean, a towering being of mist and flickering eyes, swirled with confusion. "Human, you did not interface with the hive mind. How did you process the information?" Mira tapped her pencil against her paper. "You all were trying to merge thoughts. I just listened. Turns out the hive shouts too loudly to notice the quiet parts. Gasps spread across the chamber. The concept of listening instead of forcing synchronization was alien to them. Literally. For centuries, they had assumed the test measured collective brilliance. Mira had revealed it was also a test of simplicity. News traveled fast. By evening, hollow screens across the Academy replayed her calm, almost lazy approach. Commentators whispered that humanity had uncovered a flaw in the galaxy's proudest educational structure. Her fellow students avoided eye contact in the corridors, embarrassed at their own failures. Yet Mira walked casually, hands in her pockets, as if she hadn't just rewritten the hierarchy of academic prestige. Her human classmates back on Earth would never believe this. She'd only come here on scholarship because her local university refused to count her ability to spot hidden patterns as anything beyond quirky test-taking skills. Now she was being hunted by research councils and intelligence officers who wanted to know how she did it. But Mira wasn't worried about attention. She was more concerned about the war brewing outside the Academy's safe domes. Rumors drifted through lecture halls that the core Dominion had launched fleets toward the human colonies, testing humanity's defenses. Many of her alien peers whispered with condescension, assuming humans would crumble. After all, their fleets lacked the Hive synchronization of alien armadas. Yet Mira had seen the flaw earlier today. The Hive was noisy, predictable, and too reliant on collective assumption. Humans thrived on mistakes, chaos, and irregularity. That night, as she sat in her dorm overlooking the glowing forests of Zyrus 9, Mira pulled out her pencil and sketched crude diagrams of fleet formations. If they try Hive tactics, they'll collapse under their own noise, she murmured. She wasn't planning on telling anyone yet, but she had a suspicion. The same pattern recognition that won her the exam might decide the outcome of an interstellar war. The next morning, the Academy buzzed like a disturbed nest, corridors humming with speculation. Everywhere Mira walked, eyes followed. Whispers and tongues she only half understood rose behind her, but she caught the tone, curiosity, disbelief, and more than a little fear. She passed a group of crystalline sec who clicked rapidly to one another, refracting light across the walls as though trying to study her from every angle. The Voru with their shimmering wings huddled together, whispering in high chimes. Even the usually aloof Zyrat scholars, with their obsidian carapaces and intimidating mandibles, paused to stare. Mira gave them a small nod, tightened the strap of her bag, and kept walking. She had classes to attend. Her instructor that day was Professor Zalor, a misbodied entity who normally exuded calm detachment. But as Mira entered the lecture chamber, Zalor's shifting form wavered like a storm cloud. "Human student Thompson," the voice rolled through the hall, "the council has demanded clarification regarding your method." Mira slid into her seat. "I told them already. I just solved what I saw. Didn't plug into the Hive. Didn't need to." Zalor's mist thickened, coiling around the podium. "The council believes you are withholding a technique. They cannot accept that the Hive failed." Mira clicked her pencil and leaned forward. "Maybe that's the problem. You all treat the Hive like it's just loud math." A ripple of shock went through the alien students. No one spoke of the Hive that way. It was sacred, the pride of dozens of species, the symbol of collective supremacy. Zalor's form quivered, then subsided. "You will demonstrate again. A trial has been scheduled, and this time observers from the Dominion will attend." Mira stiffened. The core Dominion, whispered aggressors, rumored warlords whose fleets gathered like thunderheads on the human frontier. If they were sending observers, this wasn't just academic anymore. At dinner that evening in the Academy's cavernous refectory, Mira found her tray piled high with dishes she didn't recognize. An eager Voru fluttered nearby. "Human Mira, may we examine your notes?" "The Hive-Mind board demands transparency." Mira blew on her stew, which smelled faintly like cinnamon and ozone. "My notes are just doodles. You wouldn't get anything out of them." She pulled out a folded paper from her pocket, covered in spirals and arrows. The Voru leaned close, compound eyes flickering. That is gibberish." "Exactly," Mira said, slurping her soup. "But it's the kind of gibberish that works when you're not trapped trying to think like everyone else." Word of her defiance spread. Some students were awed, others grew hostile. A Zyrat scholar shoved past her in the hallway, clattering his mandibles. "Your species survives only by accident. Do not mistake luck for brilliance." Mira let him stomp off, though her jaw tightened. She knew what was coming. The Dominion observers weren't arriving to watch her take a test. They were coming to measure whether humanity was worth crushing. Days later, the trial began in the Grand Synapse Chamber, a spherical hall that seemed to stretch into infinity. At its heart floated the neural lattice, a glowing construct where hive thoughts streamed like rivers of fire. Rows of alien dignitaries filled the balconies, including armored representatives of the Dominion. They were massive reptilian beings, scaled in dark metal plates, their gazes fixed on Mira with predatory disdain. Zalor's voice filled the chamber. "The task is simple. Synchronize with the hive, or fail before all." Mira stepped forward. She held no neural quill, no crystalline slate, only her pencil and a fresh page. The hive flared, pouring waves of information into every participant's mind. Aliens stiffened, limbs jerking as they strained to keep pace. Mira watched them twitch, eyes glazing as the data storm consumed them. Then she calmly lowered her gaze to the page. Numbers form patterns. Patterns form shapes. Shapes folded into a sequence. Her hand moved faster, sketching loops, arrows, and notations only she seemed to understand. The Dominion observers leaned forward, nostrils flaring. She ignores the hive entirely, one hissed in their guttural tongue. She insults the process. Minutes ticked by. Aliens groaned, some collapsing, unable to withstand the torrent. Mira flipped to her page and kept scribbling, chewing her tsum. Then she looked up. Done. The chamber hushed. Zalor's mist rippled, wrapping around her notes, feeding them into the evaluation lattice. The lattice pulsed, green again, brighter than before. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some shouted denial. Others shrieked awe. Pens clattered onto the ground once more as realization sank in. The Dominion observers rose. One slammed his scaled fist against the railing, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Unacceptable. This is deception. A single mind cannot best the hive. Mira tucked her pencil behind her ear. Maybe it can if the hive is too busy tripping over itself. Their eyes narrowed dangerously. The trial was supposed to be academic, but now it felt like a battlefield. She could see it in their posture. They weren't going to let this insult stand. That night, as the academy locked down and students whispered about scandal, Mira sat in her dorm sketching. This time she wasn't drawing equations. She was diagramming fleet patterns she remembered from the Dominion observers' insignia, the formations etched on their armor. If their ships fight like their hive exams, she muttered, then they'll be predictable. Loud, flashy, and easy to outmaneuver. A knock startled her. The door hissed open to reveal Zalor's misty form. You have humiliated the hive twice. The Dominion prepares for war. The Academy may soon become their target. Mira sighed, pushing her papers aside. Figures. Well, if they want to fight, maybe it's time someone taught them humans don't play by their rules. For the first time, Zalor's form flickered with something like amusement. The Council fears you. The Dominion despises you. Yet, some of us wonder if humanity may be the catalyst this galaxy requires. Mira leaned back, staring out at the neon glow of the alien forests. Or maybe I'm just really good at doodling. Either way, I'm not going to sit around while they decide Earth's fate. Outside, warships were already moving, their trails visible as streaks in the night sky. The Academy's peace was cracking, and Mira knew the exam halls would soon be replaced with battlefields. But if the hive was truly as flawed as she thought, then the galaxy was about to discover how dangerous a single human mind could be when the noise fell silent. When dawn broke over Zyrus 9, the Academy's domes glowed red from the reflection of ships burning in the upper atmosphere. The Dominion had not waited for negotiations. Their fleets arrived in silence, their blackened hulls blotting out the sky like storm clouds. From the refectory windows, alien students stared upward in paralyzed horror. Mira stood among them, chewing on the back of her pencil as though watching fireworks instead of an invasion. She had spent the entire night sketching out possibilities. Every page of her notebook was filled with diagrams of arcs, loops, and trajectories. None of the aliens had believed her when she said the hive was predictable, but now their war was about to prove her right. A booming voice rattled the Academy's walls. The Dominion does not negotiate with liars. Humanity has mocked our order, and now we cleanse the insult. Mira grabbed her bag and marched toward the docking bay. Around her, students scattered, teachers shouted, alarms wailed. She wasn't military, but she didn't need to be. Patterns were patterns, whether in exams or battlefields. When she entered the bay, she found rows of Academy skimmers and research craft trembling under the thrum of orbital bombardments. Engineers panicked, trying to load escape pods, but Mira shoved through. Which of these ships can fire back, she asked. An insectoid Zerat snapped its mandibles. None! These are study craft. Mira looked them over, slender frames, agile designs, meant for maneuvering near anomalies. Not warships, but fast enough. Then we make them fight anyway. Minutes later, Mira was strapped into the cockpit of a skimmer, her pencil and notebook balanced on her lap. Alien students reluctantly followed her lead, climbing into other craft. This is madness, hissed the Voru student over comms. We are scholars, not soldiers. Then take notes, Mira replied. Outside the bay, the black hulls of Dominion cruisers descended, spewing swarms of fighters in neat synchronized grids. They moved with eerie precision, every craft adjusting perfectly in time, like a school of fish ruled by one thought. It was beautiful, terrifying, and exactly what Mira expected. All right, she whispered, sketching quick loops on her page. Here's the thing about grids. They break if you kick one corner hard enough. She pushed the throttle. The skimmer launched and the other students reluctantly followed. The alien comms filled with gasps as Mira weaved between fighters, turning sharply where no sane pilot would. The Dominion expected predictable arcs, but Mira flew jagged, sloppy, random, or at least it looked that way. In truth, she was following the crude loops on her page, exploiting the rhythm of the Hive's coordination. The enemy ships corrected to match her, but when one faltered by a fraction of a second, the grid collapsed into collisions. See? Noise, Mira said as two Dominion fighters slammed into each other, exploding in synchronized fire. They're so focused on staying in formation they don't know what to do when someone colors outside the lines. Alien students gasped, then began mimicking her. Soon the skimmers swarmed chaotically, breaking apart the clean grid of the Dominion's fighters. The Hive was powerful, but every time Mira's fleet moved in unpredictable bursts, their opponents hesitated just long enough to falter. Above them, the massive cruisers fired beams that cut through the clouds, but Mira was already sketching again. Those beams take 3 seconds to charge, so we move in threes. Count it with me. She timed her fleet's dodges to the rhythm, darting in and out of blind spots. Her notebook filled with messy scribbles, each one a death sentence for a Dominion ship. Across the comms, disbelief echoed. The human is dancing with them. No, she is conducting them. What began as survival turned into a rout. Skimmers darted like gnats, weaving circles around colossal Dominion ships, exploiting every hesitation. Mira even found herself laughing once as she guided 3 fighters into ramming each other head-on. But victory wasn't simple. The Dominion was still vast, their armada stretching into orbit. The Academy shook violently as the first cruiser leveled a blast toward the domes. Mira's heart froze. If the Academy falls, we lose our base. Time to make the big kids trip. She flipped to a new page, drawing one enormous spiral. We punch through the middle, scatter them, and aim for their command ship. Hive's only as strong as its signal. The alien students hesitated, but her certainty was contagious. Together, they plunged into the swarm, tearing through the enemy's formation. Beams lashed out, fighters screamed, explosions painted the sky. At the center of the chaos loomed the Dominion's command ship, bristling with weapons and broadcasting the Hive's pulse. Mira gritted her teeth. All or nothing. She jammed the throttle and aimed directly for the vessel's core. Alarms shrieked in her cockpit, enemy fire tracing her path, but she only focused on the spiral she'd drawn. In the last instant, she tilted the skimmer and released its experimental core, meant for research, not combat. It detonated in a pulse of raw energy, blinding sensors, scrambling communications. The command ship reeled, its hive pulse fracturing into static. Suddenly, the Dominion fleet shuddered. Fighters spun out of control, cruisers collided. Without the Hive to synchronize them, they were just ships, powerful but clumsy and leaderless. Now, Mira shouted. The student fleet pounced, hurling every blast, every improvised missile, every desperate strike. The sky erupted in fire as Dominion vessels fell one after another, their proud formation broken beyond repair. By the time the smoke cleared, only fragments of the once mighty armada smoldered across the atmosphere. The Academy still stood, scorched but unbroken. Inside the Grand Synapse chamber, survivors gathered in stunned silence. Mira climbed out of her skimmer, her clothes scorched, her pencil tucked safely in her pocket. Dozens of alien eyes turned to her, some filled with awe, others with fear. Zalor's misty form hovered forward. You have not only bested the Hive in thought, but shattered it in battle. Humanity's place in this galaxy is now undeniable. Mira wiped grease from her hands. I didn't come here to prove humanity's place. I came here on a scholarship, but if the galaxy keeps trying to test us, They'd better be ready for surprises. Laughter rippled through the chamber, awkward but genuine. Even the Voru fluttered their wings in respect. Mira sat on the steps, finally letting herself breathe. The war wasn't over. The Dominion would regroup somewhere, somehow. But for today, the Hive had fallen silent, and one human doodler had shown an academy, a council, and a galaxy that noise could never silence clarity. She pulled her pencil back out, flipping to a clean page. More diagrams, more patterns, more possibilities. Because she knew the galaxy would keep throwing its Hive tests at her people, and she was ready to keep acing them. Effortlessly. The aliens didn't drop their pens this time. They bowed their heads instead, and Mira, smiling faintly, sharpened her pencil for whatever came next.